we're here at Hollywood Smoke in Santa Monica for another edition of 10 Count. I'm Steve Kim. Joined, flanking me, is the institution, Ken Miller, and from RingTV.com, Doug E. Fischer. The fight of the century has taken place. Floyd Mayweather outpoints Manny Pacquiao at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas in what was a gala, star-studded affair, and the man that was on the scene and ringside, Mr. Big Shot, Ken Miller. Ken, you were out there. What was that scene like?
It was really electric. It reminded me of just one of like a Super Bowl kind of event. And for boxing, I think it transcended that. Because, a lot of times, all of us, we talked about it here on the show, of who was going to get a credential and who wasn't going to get a credential. And I was saying to someone just the other day, it's not my right to get a credential to any sporting event. It's a privilege. And so for that reason, there are a lot of people that I know who were credentialed and were out in the tent. And quite frankly, I'll be honest with you, although I was ringside, I kind of would have liked being in the tent.
Why?
Well, because in the tent, I wouldn't have had to subject myself to Leo Santa Cruz during that and I would have had the opportunity to watch the Clippers game. That's the only reason.
That's a valid point.
Now that was a great undercard bout. Game 7 was a hell of an undercard bout.
Yeah, it was indeed.
Now, as you are seeing the whole atmosphere in the scene, I saw the pictures that we took at UCN Live in the video. It was a one big fire code violation because it was crowded. It was a mass of humanity. And what I'm hearing from you and other people, literally, as you're going through the checkpoints, with your media credential, you have to keep checking in, don't you, through a scanner?
Yeah, there's like some eye in the sky to make sure they knew where you were at all times.
Big brother.
You had to check in, whether it's the media center, you had to check out. There was no, I used to could leave from ringside and go back to the back of the MGM Grand and go to the restroom. There was some new security guy there, and he was not allowing me to do that at all. So your movement was limited, but I thought from an event perspective, I thought it was really all that in a bag of chips. And obviously, people are speculating in terms of how they felt about the fight itself. But the reality of it is that this is what it was. It was Floyd Mayweather, who has demonstrated, and I've said over and over again, and I started looking at like some of the greatest fighters in the history of boxing, and a lot of them beat the same guy 2 or 3 times. Some of them beat him twice. But you can say what it is that you want to say about Floyd Mayweather. He's doing a lot of the same stuff that Roy Jones Jr. got praised for. He's doing a lot of the same stuff that Muhammad Ali got praised for. And everything he does, people are trying to pour salt on it and find fault in it. And the reality of it is, he is beyond question the greatest boxer of this era. I've gone on record and said I think he's the best boxer of all time. And I'm going to say it again.
Really?
I've said
you
it
missed
before.
that, Steve.
I said it. If you would watch your own damn segments of UCN Live, you watch our show instead of running around following the fucking
Steve.
Hurricanes and these other people, you would know what it is that I said.
Doug, you're more of a historian than I am. I've always said about any sport, but specifically boxing, I think it is difficult to compare eras. I still remember a great quip from Teddy Brenner, greatest matchmaker.
But you two do it all the time.
No, we really don't. I don't do lists. I don't do pound for pound lists. But
You don't do pound for pound lists, but go ahead.
Teddy Brenner once was
I
asked
don't
by...
do pound for pound lists.
Yeah.
No,
I
but
do
you
all-time
compare.
great lists.
You both of you guys on this show with me have talked about comparing fighters who fight today against guys who are dead and gone in the past. You've done it over and over.
I compare Mayweather to guys who are still around and still alive.
Don't sit here and say, either one
too.
of you, do not sit here and say in front of our audience that you've not compared.
We compare, but I don't. But here's my point. Teddy Brenner was once asked by Sugar Ray Leonard, "Hey, how would you compare me to Ray Robinson?" And Teddy Brenner, as only he could, said, "Well, when you fight 200 more times, I'll let you know." And that's my point. I think if you want to say Mayweather's the greatest fighter of this era, I'm not going to argue that. I agree. Yeah. But I think it's very hard to compare fighters that fight twice a year to guys that were fighting twice a week. It's a different game.
Yeah, people, listen, Mayweather proclaims himself to be the greatest of all time. He proclaims himself to be the best ever. He doesn't say the best since 2000 or the best since 1990. He says the best ever. And the sport is more than 100 years old. So when you say that, Well, naturally, people are going to think about fighters from previous decades and previous eras. I have no problem, particularly after Saturday, with Mayweather saying, I'm the best of my era, or I'm the best of this era. If by his era or this era you mean the last 15 years or the last 20 years. I think in the last 20 years, arguably he is the best. The last 15 years, definitely, he is the best. But when you say you're the best ever, well, guess what? We're going to just dial back 30 years and be like, oh, there was this guy, Sugar Ray Leonard, or dial it back 45 years or 50 years. Like, there were these guys who were just incredible. There's been a lot of amazing boxers to come around in this sport. Amazing stars and amazing fighters in the ring and incredible accomplishments. And no, I don't put Mayweather in with a Henry Armstrong or a Willie Pep or a Ray Robinson or an Archie Moore or an Ezra Charles. And like Steve says, I'm a bit of a historian, so I can go on and on and on and on. But I mean, just looking back to my era, I was introduced to boxing in the 70s, and I became a hardcore fan during the 80s. When I was a young boxing fan and absorbing all of the sport that I could, when the two best fighters in the world, pound for pound, even though that term wasn't tossed around as much back then, but when the two best fighters in the division, the two biggest stars in the sport, the two most elite boxers got in the ring, whether it was Leonard versus Hearns or Hearns versus Hagler or Hagler versus Leonard, it wasn't just the biggest boxing event of the year or the past couple of years. It was the fight of the year.
Yeah, and they
let their hands go and they took chances.
No, and
I didn't see that Saturday night. And quite frankly, Mayweather, I appreciate Mayweather's skill. I acknowledge his accomplishments. Like I said, he is the best of his era. He is a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's better than many of the guys who were enshrined in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. But he's not my cup of tea. And I can't help but compare him to Sugar Ray Leonard because that's who I grew up with.
Doug,
it's only natural.
Doug, hold on. I don't disagree, but let's talk about the present. Floyd Mayweather keeps talking about, I have one more fight left. Listen, fighters change their minds all the time about this particular issue. Ken being out there, the sense is, do you think he holds to that promise that it's one and done?
Yeah, I do. And the reason why I think that Floyd, there's only one reason why I think he doesn't hold to that promise, and that is because of his allegiance and his relationship with the MGM Grand and all of their properties, that he takes 50 to open the new arena down there, and he takes 50 to break Marciano's record. But my belief is that he won't do either one of those, and that is because Floyd, for good or bad, a lot of people think he reveres being hated and despised and all of that. There's a part of him that wants to be respected, and he doesn't feel that even if he does break Marciano's record, that he would be respected as being everything that he feels that he's achieved in the sport of boxing. And that, in my opinion, is just, it's an awful shame. What I discovered that was really, really disturbing throughout the entire promotion of this fight is not just all those corporate and stars who came out to watch the fight. The majority of those people were rooting for Pacquiao. The majority of those people were rooting for Pacquiao.
That surprised me, by the way.
No, most of the media was rooting for Pacquiao. Although we're supposed to be biased, that's a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
Was rooting for Pacquiao. And then there was this overwhelming sense that I got from the black community that black people were rooting for Pacquiao.
Really?
And against,
Really?
And
Really?
against, I'm telling you, and against Floyd Mayweather. And I talk.
Well, they don't do that on record.
Well,
right. It's like the OJ trial. No matter what you think of the OJ trial, they're like, hey, OJ.
No, they don't.
Innocent until proven guilty.
They don't get on. We don't get on record that much.
Not about that issue.
We don't get on record that much.
Issue, you don't.
There were a number of black people who were anti-Mayweather.
Why though? Why do you think?
I think for the most part, most of the black people that I know are part of those 99%ers. And there's a part of, I don't know, there's some about black people, unlike any other race, right? If you get shot or get killed, we say it's a damn shame, okay? But in the midst of your climbing from where it is that we came from, you're one of ours, and then once you get there, you forgot all about it.
Crabs in a bucket, basically. Is that?
I don't know about crab in the bucket, but it's like you came from where we came from, and you've forgotten where you came from. And I think more than anything else, that is the disdain that black people have for Floyd Mayweather. Because I asked him this at that mega press conference. What do you think your responsibility is outside of the ring about? And then he gave me some answer that, well, you know, I do some charitable things through my foundation. But the thing that's really truly disturbing about Floyd is that he's insulating himself from everybody.
Yeah.
And he's not trying to embrace or give back to anyone. And I think that's
well, there's your answer. And Doug, I've always thought, and me and you went through this, and especially your mailbag and the discussions underneath, that Roy Jones was the quote-unquote African-American fighter that's the segment, like that's my market. And I thought the baton was passed with Mayweather, so I'm actually surprised. I think the majority of African-Americans, they are Mayweather fans knowing what he is, for better or worse. That's surprising that you'd say that.
No, and that's not true. Tyson was a different beast.
Yep.
Mike Tyson was an entirely different beast because although he had all of the money, you'd see Mike Tyson in a club.
He still seemed like a regular guy. He mixed with
he was
the
more.
population.
He seemed like you can connect to him more. So.
Yeah, and by the way, Mike Tyson went on record with UCN. He's one of those black people that don't like Floyd
He's got
Mayweather.
some other reasons.
Yes, and it's in his book, by the way. But anyway, on behalf of Doug Fischer and Ken Miller, this is Steve Kim for the 10 Count saying till the next round, goodbye, everybody.